The grand chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the ancient doors opened. Representatives from 12 star systems sat in their floating seats, their bodies different in every way possible. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystalline forms. They had gathered for one purpose only. The Oracle of Vethra had requested an audience, and no one in the known galaxy refused such a request. She walked slowly into the center of the chamber. Her skin was deep blue, like the oceans of her dying homeworld. Her eyes had no pupils, just endless pools of white that seemed to look into dimensions beyond normal sight. She was older than most civilizations present in that room. Her people, the Vethrans, had developed the gift of prophecy through millions of years of evolution. They could see the threads of time itself. The Oracle stopped at the center podium. She looked around the room with those empty white eyes. Every representative felt as if she was staring directly into their soul. The Krallick's ambassador, a massive creature with 4 arms and thick green hide, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Synthera delegation, beings of pure light, dimmed slightly with unease. The oldest member of the council, Supreme Chancellor Varath of the Mandari Empire, spoke first. His voice was deep and ancient, carried across the chamber by invisible speakers. He asked the Oracle why she had called this emergency session. The galaxy was at peace, he reminded her. The Great Wars had ended 3,000 years ago. What could be so urgent? The Oracle raised one thin blue hand. Her fingers were long and delicate, marked with silver patterns that glowed faintly. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. It echoed not just in the chamber, but in the minds of every being present. She had seen something, she said. Something that changed everything they knew about the future of their galaxy. She had seen the rise of a species that would shake the very foundations of their civilizations. A species that most of them had never heard of. A species from a small blue planet on the outer edge of an unremarkable spiral arm. The Krallick's ambassador laughed. His species had conquered 1,000 worlds. What could possibly come from such an insignificant corner of the galaxy? The other representatives joined in quiet murmurs of agreement. Surely the Oracle was mistaken. Perhaps her great age had finally caught up with her. The Oracle did not react to their doubt. She simply waited until the chamber grew quiet again. Then she spoke the name of that species. Humans, she called them. The room remained silent, confused. None of them had heard this word before. The Oracle began her prophecy. She told them that these humans were young. Their civilization was barely 10,000 years old. They had only discovered space travel recently. They were weak physically compared to most species in the galaxy. They lived short lives, sometimes less than 100 years. They were fragile and prone to disease. By all measures, they should be insignificant. But they were not insignificant. The Oracle's voice grew stronger as she continued. She described how these humans had evolved on a world that wanted to kill them. Their planet was covered in predators. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Diseases swept through their populations constantly. Natural disasters struck without warning. And yet, instead of dying out like so many species did, the humans adapted. They learned. They grew stronger with each challenge. The Oracle told them about human history. She spoke of wars that lasted decades, fought with weapons that could destroy entire cities. She described how humans had split the very atoms of their world to create fire hotter than stars. She explained how they had poisoned their own air and water and land, and instead of accepting death, they have found ways to heal their planet. Every obstacle that should have destroyed them only made them more determined. The Synthera delegation flickered with concern. They asked what this had to do with them. They were beings of energy, immortal and powerful. Why should they fear creatures made of soft flesh and brittle bone? The Oracle turned those wide eyes toward the Synthera. She asked them a simple question. What happened when the Synthera faced a problem they could not solve? The delegation paused. They admitted that they simply accepted it. They moved on. They found peace in acceptance, as all civilized beings did. The oracle smiled, though there was no joy in that expression. Humans, she explained, did not accept. Humans did not move on. Humans fought. They struggled. They raged against the universe itself. When they faced the impossible, they did not bow down. They found a way to make the impossible possible. She gave them examples from her visions of the future. She saw humans traveling faster than light, not because the physics allowed it, but because they refused to believe it was truly impossible. She saw them colonizing worlds that no other species could survive on, adapting their bodies and machines to environments that should have killed them instantly. She saw them bringing dead worlds back to life, terraforming entire planets through sheer stubborn will. The Krellick's ambassador interrupted again. His species was built for war. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, he repeated. They feared no one. If these humans proved to be a threat, the Krellick's would simply destroy them before they became dangerous. The oracle looked at him with something like pity in those endless white eyes. She described what would happen if anyone attacked the humans. She explained that humans did not fight like other species. Other species fought for resources or territory or survival. Humans fought for ideas. They fought for each other. They fought for revenge. And when they fought, they did not stop until their enemy was utterly destroyed. She told the Krellick's about human soldiers who threw themselves on explosives to save their companions. She spoke of human pilots who flew their damaged ships into enemy vessels rather than retreat. She described human scientists who worked themselves to death to create weapons that could turn the tide of war. She painted pictures of human commanders who would sacrifice entire fleets just to protect a single civilian transport. The chamber grew very quiet. The oracle continued. She said that humans had a concept that no other species in the galaxy truly understood. They called it hope. No matter how dark the situation, no matter how impossible the odds, humans always believed that things could get better. This hope made them unpredictable. It made them dangerous. It made them unstoppable. She described the future she had seen. Humans would spread across the galaxy like a wildfire. They would form alliances with species that had been enemies for millennia. They would solve problems that ancient civilizations had given up on ages ago. They would ask questions that no one had ever thought to ask. And they would find answers that changed everything. But there was more, the oracle warned. There was darkness in the human soul as well. She spoke of their capacity for cruelty. She described wars fought for reasons so petty that even the most warlike species present would be ashamed. She mentioned their tendency to destroy themselves through greed and hatred. She showed them visions of human weapons that could shatter moons and burn entire continents. The humans were a paradox, she explained. They were capable of incredible kindness and unimaginable cruelty. They created beautiful art and terrible weapons. They loved deeply and hated fiercely. They were the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever produced because they were completely unpredictable. Supreme Chancellor Vorath asked a question that everyone was thinking. What should they do? Should they destroy the humans now, before they became a threat? Should they welcome them as friends? Should they hide and hope the humans never found them? The oracle shook her head slowly. She said that none of those options would work. The humans could not be destroyed. She had seen that future too. Every attempt to wipe them out only made them stronger. Every enemy they faced became a lesson they learned from. Every tragedy they suffered became fuel for their determination. They could not be welcomed either, not truly. Humans did not think like other species. They would never be satisfied with their place in the galaxy. They would always push further, reach higher, demand more. They would challenge every assumption and question every tradition. They would change everything they touched, and they could not be avoided. Humans were curious beyond reason. They would explore every corner of the galaxy, poke into every mystery, investigate every hidden place. Eventually, they would find everyone. The Oracle raised both her hands. Her silver markings blazed with light. She delivered her final prophecy. The humans were coming, she declared. Nothing in the universe could stop them. The only choice the gathered species had was how they would face this inevitable truth. They could stand against the tide and be swept away. They could try to guide the flood and hope it did not drown them. Or they could embrace the storm and pray they survived long enough to see what emerged on the other side. The lights in the chamber flickered. The Oracle's blue skin seemed to glow from within. Her voice echoed with power that made the walls themselves vibrate. She told them that in 1,000 years, humans would stand where they stood now. Human ambassadors would sit in this very chamber, debating the fate of species they had not yet met. Human explorers would have mapped territories that current sensors could not even detect. Human scientists would have unlocked secrets that the oldest civilizations in the galaxy had never imagined. And all of the representatives gathered here today, all of their great empires and ancient dynasties, all of their proud histories and mighty achievements would be remembered only as footnotes in human history books. Background characters in a story that the humans were just beginning to write. The Oracle lowered her hands. The glow faded. She looked old again, tired and worn. She had delivered her prophecy. What they did with it was their choice. She turned and began walking toward the doors. The chamber remained frozen in shock and fear. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of her words pressed down on every being present. Just before she reached the doors, the Oracle stopped. She turned back one last time. She offered them one small comfort. The humans, for all their danger, had one more quality that she had not mentioned. They were also capable of mercy. They could forgive enemies who had tried to destroy them. They could lift up species that had been beaten down. They could share their fire with those who sat in darkness. If the gathered species chose wisely, if they approached the humans with respect and honesty, if they offered friendship instead of fear, then perhaps they could become partners in the human story instead of obstacles. Perhaps they could share in the future instead of being left behind by it. The Oracle smiled one more time. It was a sad smile, knowing and ancient. She said that she hoped they would choose well. The future depended on it. The doors closed behind her. The representatives sat in silence for a long time. Somewhere on a small blue planet they had never heard of, a young species was taking its first steps toward the stars. They did not know that the galaxy was already trembling at their approach. The future was coming, ready or not.